We have some bars over here. And the first thing that we want to do is pre-comp those by hitting Command or Control Shift C, and we'll name this 010BA. The reason why I'm naming this B is because it's the second pre-comp in our scene, and A is because we will pre-comp this again later and it will sit within another comp. We'll immediately add a start marker, trim the comp, and as you can see, this comp is pretty large for what we've got in here. We will crop the region of interest. This means we're making the comp slightly smaller, and we're just doing that visually by literally cropping what we can see here. We'll now go to Composition and crop comp to region of interest. That means that within our scene, this layer has now moved. So we'll just reposition that. We will duplicate it and shift it up. And we'll turn down the opacity to 10%. We can now turn off our reference bars, and these static bars will then act as our background bars. We will now duplicate this comp and rename that running bars and change the A to a B. We'll duplicate this layer by having both the layer and the comp selected. We'll hit Alt and drag the layer over here. That means we have now replaced the layer with the comp in our project window without having to drag it in and then reposition it. That also means we'll have to bring this back up to 100, and we'll now animate these bars. We now want to fade these bars in from 0 to 100, so we will create an opacity keyframe, set this to 0, and we'll move forward 60 frames this time. Move this back up to 100. We'll set this back to 0, and we'll add an easy ease to these keyframes. We'll cut the layers by hitting Alt and bracket bar. We'll now shift these layers 4 frames forward. There are plugins and scripts that you can use, but we'll just do this manually for now. We'll now move the end marker to the end of our first layer. We'll also add an additional marker to the end of the last layer. We'll now move out back into the scene. We'll add the same marker we've added inside. We'll check where our end marker is and also add this one. We'll change this one to start, and we'll crop our layer at the end marker. We'll now duplicate this and flip it horizontally, move it over here. That means our bars are now animating from left to right and back from right to left. We'll duplicate these bars and move them up here. We'll change the color of these so we can distinguish top and bottom. Let's make them blue, for instance. And now we'll pre-comp all of these bars again, and we'll name that 010B running bars. We'll add a marker. We'll move the end marker to where our animation ends. We can crop the region of interest here. We don't have to, seeing as we're no longer moving this, but we might as well. We'll add an end marker. Since we've cropped our comp, we'll have to move it back into position. We'll add a time remap. We'll add keyframes to where our markers are set, remove the end and the start keyframes, and we will add a cycle loop. Now, our bars are both running left to right simultaneously. We'll change that to make it a little bit more interesting. So we'll just swap the position of both of these around. And now they're running against each other.